let's proceed with the interactive part. And I would like to invite back to the podium Kristian Kaunisare, Deans Merirans and Dainius Budris. And they will be joined by Kaspars Briškans, Business Development Manager for RB Rail. Please, gentlemen. Now, there will be opportunity to ask both questions from the audience right now, also still through Slido, and perhaps some of the panel members would like to ask questions to each other. Is there anybody right now in the audience who has questions? Yes, please, up there. Yeah. And please state your name if possible.
Yeah, hi, this is Juan Pablo Barahona from Patentes Talgo. I'm a rolling stock manufacturer company in Europe. So my question is, what about rolling stock? Do we have any update?
Okay. Rolling stock, is it too far for us to talk about? Kaspars, please.
I can take a shot at it. Well, certainly now we are in the planning and design stage. We haven't really yet figured out what will be the model of infrastructure management, let alone infrastructure operation. Clearly, we are aiming to implement a project which paves the way for an unimpeded market access for all participants. So at the end of the day, even though the CBA internalizes some of the cost of rolling stock on the operator's side, but we are neutral to the question of ownership and financing of the rolling stock, because that will certainly be the prerogative of the future operators. And hopefully there will be interest both on the freight and passenger side. So at the moment, this is not an issue that Rail Baltica project is preoccupied with. At the same time, we are of course following the developments of technology in the market, because the future rolling stock, the types and technologies of future rolling stock could also affect some of the technical designs that we are putting in place.
And perhaps, Kaspar, if you can continue on the question of what we are looking for when we are planning for studies as RB Rail and other implementing bodies. What are the benchmarks we are looking for?
Well, I will have, together with my colleague Kaido, a presentation on these issues. Of course, there are certain elements. We can divide the studies in multiple parts. There are business development studies to do with marketing and communication of the future line, and at the same time there are technical studies, and all of those have certain prerequisites. But when it comes to the selection of successful tenderers, we are very much looking to tap into a global best practice benchmarking. I mean, there is certain and growing in-house capacity for all these studies, including technical and business development, commercialization related, but certainly we would like to engage with tenderers who can help us unlock the knowledge there is both in the European rail industry based on European best successful cases of infrastructure deployment, but also globally. And that's something that we are putting a lot of effort into to consistently increase the capacity at RB Rail, and I believe also at national implementing institutions, our capacity to absorb best European and global practice.
Thank you. If I may then take the first question, which comes from Slido, and this will probably be to Deans and to Dainius, and you probably almost covered. When there will be e-procurement available in Latvia and Lithuania? So could you just remind ourselves?
Well, I rather precisely stated in my presentation. So for the procurements above a certain amount, it will be available starting from the middle of 2017. For others, for smaller procurements, it will start in 2018.
Okay, and Dainius, you already mentioned that you are...
As I mentioned in my presentation also in Lithuania, once again I would like to repeat that we have public procurements are fully digitalized, so you can participate as soon as possible. And the new laws are coming and transposing European Union directives on 1st of July, since the 1st of July.
Thank you. And then I would like to stay with the same issue, asking you both, and maybe Madame Trautmann or Madame Rubes can also add. There are several questions related to language issues. And the one I'm reading from Slido is that will Latvia and Lithuania adopt a procurement philosophy to issue tender documents and receive responses in English to reduce the need for costly translations? What would be your response today, and maybe what do you know, are there any initiatives coming up in respect of avoiding costs because of translations?
Who will start? Well, this was also mentioned in my presentation, in fact, so you were not listening carefully. The good news regarding the newest tender Eiropas dzelzceļa līnijas has announced is that tender documentation currently is being translated.
Okay.
Yeah, as I mentioned, public procurement documents in Lithuania can be drafted in Lithuanian and any language. So that means maybe Lithuanian and Latvian, and Lithuanian and Estonian, maybe Lithuanian and English. So, and internal documents after that for tenders will be in Lithuanian language.
Okay. Yes, please, Madame Rubes.
Yeah. I would really like to address this to the entire audience, because the question of language is strategic in very many ways, and it's an issue that we're dealing with the European Commission, not just DG Move, but also DG Grow. Because most cross-border projects, especially if the languages differ, have a quote-unquote language problem. And it's not only about cost necessarily or time, it is about whether or not the translation is technically correct, especially when you translate back and forth, among many other things. Within the project and within the joint venture, our common language is English, in whichever way, as you can tell, also with the documentation, I think that all three countries have indicated would be in English. Therefore, what we seek to achieve in the near future is to have some agreement on what documentation will only be in English for the project. This may take a good half year, but we are working on it because other projects have found that there have been mistakes along the way, translating back and forth. And I can tell you, even just translating some things for this conference, we do not have enough translators in all three languages with the relevant expertise in Estonian, Latvian, or Lithuanian to be able to cope precisely, qualitatively, and with the volume of translation that we will be faced with over time. So this, for a project, for a cross-border project, is an immense challenge that we've started to face a few months ago. So I think the pragmatic responses, sort of sit here at the table because, as we know in the European Union, you can have a directive that is common for everybody, but it is up to the member states to enact regulations, and be they around language, be they around e-documentation. For a cross-border project, it is actually important that the European Union, in a fairly short period of time, if I had any say, would find a way to have one common set of standards for any cross-border projects that are relevant for it. And I think that those of you that come from ministries and engage with Brussels will see that this is an issue that is of high importance. So in language, let's see how we work it out. But right now we need to follow the national legislations as they are, but we are going to try to find a way where terms of reference are possibly only in one language, especially the technical ones, that being English, and that we would have executive summaries in the local languages. But whether we succeed, keep watching.
So be patient. And in short, Christian and other panel members, what are your biggest concerns in terms of legislative requirements for this project? Do you see any major obstacles or issues that both authorities and suppliers should worry about? Christian, if you can start.
Yeah, actually, I couldn't even comment on that.
Okay.
As well, we have to, of course, everybody has to follow the relevant legislation and so on. But I wanted to comment a little bit on the language issue as well. That this is clear that having a common language for the procurements of cross-border projects, this is important. But what is also important from the side of the buyer, and that we have actually a bunch of buyers. Well, we have RB Rail, we have the implementing bodies, we have the beneficiaries as well. It's also important to ensure that the buyer itself is capable of understanding the language that documentation is written in. So as English is not the mother tongue of well, actually all of the people sitting on this podium here, we should also see this side, that this should also be covered, that the understanding will be common. You know, we might be in a situation where the buyer and the seller both, they will have to use the English language, not being proficient in that, and there could be some misunderstandings in the interpretation of the documentation, the documents or the bids or whatever. But well, this is hopefully a minor issue.
Danius? Do you have any other concerns that you would like to point out in addition?
Maybe disputes, as I mentioned before, but you know, it depends in which country will be this tender announced, and actually, if it will be in Estonia, and everything will goes by Estonian laws. If it will be in Lithuania, it will goes by Lithuanian procurement laws. The same in Latvia. As everybody maybe knows, but also I saw the questions here about Rail Baltica, and if I may, I can say that RB Rail is worked by Latvian laws, so that means all the laws of procurement will be, which was done, the tenders in RB Rail will be done by Latvian laws. So.
And maybe before that, Dins, there is the question that addressing consolidated procurement of RB Rail and related to Latvian procurement laws, then could there be a risk of significant appeal delays for the project? How do you see this appeal and complaint structure nowadays in Latvia? Could it force us to be delayed?
There is always a risk, but the task of contracting authority is to do the utmost possible to prevent those risks. So by no means we can exclude the situations when this or that decision is appealed, but it is in our task to make the procurement documentation as precise and as exhaustive as possible.
Kaspars, please.
Just to add on this, I mean, this idea, the notion of consolidated procurement, is one of the key pillars of the contracting scheme signed between the stakeholders, the project. So RB Rail will be working very keenly on making sure that this approach is legally compatible so that we can actually unlock all of the benefits from consolidated procurement that we are intending. Economies of scale through procurement consolidation. I'll talk about this a few moments later. The critical aspects of interoperability, which are affected by procuring, for example, subsystems in a consolidated way, despite the fact that the schedule will be mixed and it's not a uniform schedule of deployment and procurement. So clearly this issue of legal compliance of such complicated elements on a 3-country or 5-country project, these are important, and our procurement department is certainly taking note of that and working to find solutions so that we can maximize the benefits from consolidated procurement.
Okay, thank you. Can we then now pass the microphone to whoever wants to have the questions from the audience? Is there anybody now? No, not at the moment. Okay, let's now go for the next question. Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry.
Yes, I'm from Aegis Rail, French company. We are designer, engineering, and we are at the beginning of the play game here, and we are looking for local resources. You said that you can do a lot of things in-house, and we are looking for that also. So this is my first remark. My question is, as the design will be procured by Rail Baltica, what is the position of the local infrastructure owner in the procurement? They will participate to that, or?
Would you like to take the question on design right now, or will we follow in the...
There will be more details, certainly, during the next round of presentations and the Q&A, but the basic idea is that, by and large, according to our contracting scheme, RB Rail is responsible for all technical design processes, with one major exception. In the areas where design and build contracts are the industry norm, such as for local facilities like passenger terminals or freight terminals, those will be in the domain of the national implementing bodies. But clearly, there's both the economies of scale, there's the issue of consolidating designs. There will be a consolidated preliminary technical design, which will be based on the design guidelines, which is also another important study. So it is important that these critical design processes are coordinated through one main coordinator. But at the same time, where the industry norm and where efficiency lies in doing that on the national level, on the ground level, there we have this important exception. And I agree with you that one thing is the in-house capacities available to RB Rail, but at the same time, as Madam Rubes emphasized, we aim to be an intelligent client and also to outsource these services to companies such as the company you represent.
And there is a comment also from Madame Rubes, please.
I want to comment on one thing that you mentioned that is regarding actually infrastructure management. First of all, we are building a greenfield project. It's something brand new, greenfield, new, number one. Secondly, not everything in this project is happening in a logical progression. At least not the way one would normally do certain things in a classic project management, let's say for infrastructure development. Therefore, we have to take some deviations. It's not a straight line that we're doing, it's a straight line with some curves along the way. One of them is that if the world were perfect, we would already know now who the infrastructure manager is for the line. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, infrastructure managers? Who are they? And how will this work? The good news is that in the course of this year, we will be completing the infrastructure management study, and the beneficiaries are obliged to make a decision in the course of 2018 at the very latest as to how this is going to work, because clearly infrastructure management decisions will influence something somewhere along the way, also, along the way. At the same time, as one of the slides in the very beginning that Kaspars Rokan showed, the level of cooperation and collaboration is very important among actually the partners that are sitting here. Because, in fact, the great learning is that there's always something a little bit different in each location, due to legislation, due to terrain, just to geography, due to assumptions, due to experience with 15, 20 millimeter networks, etc. So we will do things and try to make sure that by 2018 somehow we're on a normal project management sort of process where things are falling into a place a little bit easier. Therefore, the question around, what will the local infrastructure manager say? There is no such infrastructure manager.
Thank you. And there are a few questions on Slido in relation to information availability. The one is, what is the best source for finding information about all upcoming RB projects and planned budgets. Is there one central source for such information? railbaltica.org is the place you should go and visit and see the plans and also the today's presentations as well. And then there was a question, where can we find the contracting scheme as well? The major points of contracting scheme were already mentioned today during presentations, and you can see main principles in our webpage as well. So this about the webpage. Now let's proceed with the next question from Slido. Will FEDIC be used for construction procurements? If yes, then what FEDIC is foreseen? Yellow, red, or else, and who will be taking the role of FEDIC engineer? Do you want any one of you take the?
I guess Chris can answer that.
I can answer, yes. I just wanted, if you might want to note. Yes.
Can moderate.
There are a few issues to note in respect of construction agreements. The first one, as well as with any other agreements, we try to look for the best possible benchmarks. So FEDIC seems to be now still the leading, having leading role, and with some other additions coming into place like NEC contracts. So in respect of construction procurements, most likely they will be FEDIC based, and in respect of design and build and also for Riga station, most likely they will be FEDIC yellow book. Although it is still, we discuss also with implementing bodies what would be the best way to carry on. And what we are currently doing is that together with implementing bodies, we are drafting first contract templates, leaving some authority to local national implementing bodies to decide on each particular case what can be adjusted in FEDIC contracts, and then we are going to proceed with using these construction contracts as well. So if you have any other suggestions or you have seen lately where the market is moving, feel free to contact me or anybody else in the whole project and to say this is how you see the best market practices coming up. So that was in respect of FEDIC contracts. Now, procurement documentation for Riga station, when it will be available in English, I think, Dins, you mentioned that it is going to translate it. Is it week, month?
Well, we wouldn't lose the quality for the sake of the speed. So I wouldn't like to promise you any particular date. If one of my colleagues who will be presenting the project as such would like to turn to this issue, then he could give additional information. But no specific date is set, but we are doing this as fast and as good as possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
May I
yes, please.
Again, what I also told in my speech that it is advisable, of course, for all of the bidders and companies interested in taking parts in the procurements to source for local knowledge as well. This could also help to overcome the translation issue, because with local knowledge you will be certainly better capable of providing quality bids. Mm-hmm.
There should be definitely a balance with the best international practice and local experience as well. Now, I think this is one of the issues that is important, and each of you mentioned, but perhaps you can now elaborate a little bit more. The issue of, we see a lot of references to lowest price tender, but nothing that refers to value. How Rail Baltica, and then I would say the whole project, would ensure that the best value is obtained for the money spent. Do you have any comments on that? How do you plan to work on this issue and to try to address this issue that we move away from the cheapest price to the best value? Do you want? Kaspars, please.
Well, in the next presentation, there will be no reference to lowest value, to lowest price. The value is what we are aiming for. And just to give you an example of the long-term business plan that is being tendered with the deadline early next month, price is around 1/3 of the qualification criteria. We're certainly looking for other critical parameters, and oftentimes we would be using the more complicated procurement methods, ones that would also involve final negotiations with the qualified candidates, clearly in the aim of unlocking the best value from the tender and for those projects that we will procure, especially with regard to studies. But I could also imagine, and we will find the way of how to organize these tenders in the most efficient way, but also for consolidated procurement, for example, of subsystems like ERTMS. We will aim at value, benefits of interoperability, of a flexible adaptation schedule. Price will be an important component, but just one of many components, and may not be the only one deciding factor.
Thank you, Kaspars. Anything else you want to add? No? There is now also the comment, the quality of terms of reference already announced are often poor or even not clear, and please increase the quality of your terms of reference, and I will promise we will do that. Now, one final touch. Is there, yes, can we go around and then have one more comment or suggestion or recommendation to our suppliers from local perspective? And then we could finish our Q&A session with that. Danius, please.
Thank you very much for all the participants. But first I would like to do some correction in the presentation which was done by my colleague Kaspars Rokens about Lithuanian activities. I would like to note that you know everybody that we are on the way to do the feasibility study from the Polish-Lithuanian border to Kaunas. And since when it will be finished, we will talk about the special plan of this line, or maybe to construct another one. So it's I would like to note that. And also one remark. I don't know is it good or bad, but in my presentation was said about the construction of missing links from Kaunas to Palemonas. So keep in touch. And we are invited everybody to the new repeated tenders. So thank you once again.
Thank you, Danius. Christian?
Yeah, I just want to come back to the price and quality thing. During the recent procurements that the implementing body in Estonia, Rail Baltic Estonia, has announced for rather, let's say, studies, like for the Muuga port study, they have all been based on the best quality criteria, where the price has been even lower than 50% of the whole evaluation criteria. So this is the way we want to go, because really, lowest price doesn't mean the best quality.
Kaspars?
I would like to use the opportunity to encourage all the suppliers, all the potential partners in this room to also engage with us proactively. Of course, we will do our best and our maximum to try to engage with you through different roadshows, participation in industry fairs. We'll increasingly, as we grow capacity at RB Rail, participate in the major fairs with our own stands. We'll be there, we'll present for you, we'll supply information to you. Our website will be overhauled. You will have the information there. But at the same time, it would add a lot of value if you also engage and reach out to us directly. Send us your company profiles. You now, after you've done with today, you will have a good picture of the timeline of the upcoming tenders. At the same time, you also have a project plan. You know when these things are upcoming, be that business studies, technical designs, procurement of subsystems, or construction phases and phases thereafter. I think it will help us to build a database of competencies, a pool in which we can tap as we publish these tenders. And certainly that will also, understanding what capacities exist in the market, will also help us improve on the terms of reference, which is clearly a learning process also at RB Rail, and national implementing institutions will get better. I promise that.
And Dins, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, price is important, of course, but this is not the only thing, because experience and quality, they are equally important. So therefore, I think that it's not the only thing when somebody says that we are referring only to the lowest price. We are referring to the best value for the money.
Thank you. Now, all the best things in life come in three things. So you now have 3 options what you can spend next few hours to. The first one I mentioned to you, we will right now start the suppliers meeting point in Beta Hall with you doing networking and meeting each other and discussing possibilities to help each other and to help Rail Baltica project. The second one is that in 5 minutes time, after a very short break, we will start workshops in 3 procurement topics, going into more details about studies, design, and then central station of Riga. That is going to be discussed in more detail. And then finally, if you are a little bit hungry, you can go downstairs to the main restaurant and have a lunch as well. But can we give a round of applause to our panelists? Thank you very much.